My name is Cody Savoy, and I am one of the creators as well as the lead writer and artist behind foreWARD. foreWARD takes place in a metropolis surrounded by a mystical wilderness. The city, Chushu, is a civilization of humans where individuals with natural-born talents are trained to ward off the spiritual overgrowth and protect its residents. This protection takes the form of privatized organizations who deploy wardens to maintain the safety of humanity from the encroaching threats referred to as Ayakashi.
My name is Morgan Lee, and I am the co-writer and director of foreWARD. Our protagonists work at one such organization called the Kokai Agency. There, they are interns determined to work their way up the ladder, so when given the opportunity to prove themselves, they seize the chance. But as the impending risk of becoming conquered by the overgrowth increases, they are swept up in their own mortal follies and are forced to reflect on themselves and question their paths of choice.
foreWARD is the culmination of something over 10 years of my life's work. At some point in high school, I entered my character, Arashi, into a fight club in the Polycarbon BBS. The Fight Club was a forum where each participant submitted a character and took turns drawing sequential art, with each person contributing to part of the story. Eventually, the Fight Club died down, and only myself and my friend Peter were the ones left who wished to continue with the project. We received the blessings of each character's creator and decided to turn it into a webcomic on our own, which we called Escape from Ninja High School. I spent years writing for this proposed webcomic and drawing out loads of concept art. But eventually, the momentum for that stopped too. I moved on to doing my own things, but I couldn't stop falling back on these characters to draw and think about. After all, I'd spent so much time on them, and I attribute a lot of my growth to how much work I put into it all. This actually might be the first image I submitted to the Fight Club to represent my character. Like, this is my character. This is Arashi. Yeah. So this is really old.
Okay, so that's the beginning.
That's the beginning. This is how I wanted the panel to look. This is just me planning out panels and pages.
Was that more of a page?
This was like supposed to be a full page, as was this one.
And then I noticed that this face here
is
almost exactly the same.
It's the same face, except I drew it first on this one, just test the waters and see what it looked like. And then I tried to draw it again, and I messed up, and it didn't look quite as good as this one.
I was going to say, because I can tell the eyes aren't as intense in the second.
The second one, yeah. This was the first one I did it better. I tried to replicate it. I failed.
It still looks good. When I first started getting to know Cody, he was still working on Escape. It was one of the first things that he ever shared with me, and I fell in love. The effort he bled into the art and writing was so apparent to me, and watching him grow with it was captivating. Even when he stopped working on it, I found myself constantly reminding him that it was something really special.
I came back to Escape in 2015 with the idea and prompt to revamp the whole thing. But I knew that if I were to revisit it, I wanted it to be something I was more proud of. As it stood, it was basically Naruto fanfiction. All the characters were ninja, and while we tried to separate it and make it into our own world, there was a lot of apparent influence that seeped in. In order to give this story its own identity, we had to change the setting. Ninja were out, as was the high school. I'd always toyed with the idea of a modern universe, so I finally just decided to act on it. And that became the roots of foreWARD. But even with updating the setting, there was one thing from the original that couldn't be shaken from the story, and that was the spiritual old world of Japan itself. There were a lot of myths and legends that influenced the old Escape from Ninja High School, from the characters' abilities to gods themselves. However, this turned out to be conducive to the overall product. My desire to update and modernize did everything but hinder the story itself, because it gave a central theme and conflict in which the story could take place.
I think one of the coolest things about foreWARD is getting to watch everything just fall into place, especially since I read all of the old stuff from Escape from Ninja High School. It's like this is the natural way the story is meant to be expressed. And one of the core themes now is the old versus the new, so the fact that this is a new version of an old story is the perfect reflection of that.
Escape from Ninja High School was supposed to be a webcomic, but I wasn't supposed to go at it alone. I was just the only one who kept up with it, which left me burnt out on the whole idea. However, with animation, I won't have to do it alone.
There are always alternative options to telling a story like this, but foreWARD, to me, has become about the collaborative art. we've managed to gather several incredibly talented people who have graciously lent us their abilities in making the pilot's animatic.
Way to go, Mitsuki. Is running away all you can do?
I'll show you who's running away!
Mitsuki! Mitsuki? What the hell is that thing doing here?
He's my friend! I just thought you should meet him! Why do you think he's here? He's attacking me!
So you brought him to the kitchen?
I brought him a lot of places! I give him a tour of the fucking city!
When Cody started reworking foreWARD with the idea of it as an animated series, my first job was to really just bring in the voice talent. I've been fortunate enough to make some great connections as a voice actor. Working with Cody as a writer just sort of fell into place since we're constantly bouncing ideas off of one another anyway. It's sort of a dream to be able to work alongside him, especially on the first thing he ever shared with me as a fellow writer.
There's a cohesiveness to foreWARD that wasn't there in Escape from Ninja High School. There are things I didn't care about as much in the original, so Morgan cared about them for me. If my ideas don't work, she tells me no, and vice versa, so we balance each other out. I spent a whole year drawing for this animatic, over 300 storyboards and individual assets for one episode. I could dedicate that work into a comic, but when I think about animation, I think about music and voice acting. I think about the collaboration of a team. foreWARD has grown beyond just me now. Morgan and our voice actors are a part of this, and I'd like to keep it that way.
While we have the story and the artists behind the creative development, what we lack are the resources.
Kickstarter is the go-to place for funding passion projects like ours, so our decision to come to a production studio is certainly a unique one. Truthfully, we do plan on going that route if it comes down to it.
Access to a team of animators as well as the financial stability in order to pay for a project like this are two of the most important things we are looking for. And having a mindful and experienced producer to aid in the planning and development stages would also be beneficial.
foreWARD is enormous in scope to think of tackling independently.
Our own audience is small, and our presence isn't exactly enough to prove that we're more than just talk. But that's why we spent a year making this animatic.
The animatic alone isn't all we have. The first story arc is outlined, plans for what follows already in place, loads of concept art ready to be converted into model sheets.
But that's getting ahead of ourselves. What our initial goal for this pitch is to get the pilot animated so that we can garner audience response and ensure there is interest in the product. Really, we'd love to have the entire first season produced, but we know relying on the pilot is far more realistic.
With all that said, we'd like to introduce foreWARD's pilot episode, Burning Tracks, for your consideration. Please enjoy.